gentlemen, welcome to the show. The fat lad Neil Pickup in the mother fluffing house, and for those of you who've been waiting patiently, eagerly for part 3 with Paul Linn, the wait is over. For the real fans, get out the tissues, get out the hand lotion. It's on, mother fluffers. Linn is in the house. Paul, how's it hanging?
Very well, very well. Another day,
nice,
another
I'm sure it will be with some of your fans, mate. You got a lot of love on those first parts, and we got quite a few questions for you as well today. So as we walk through, we'll fire a few of those in and get some opinions. Anything been cracking in the meantime, mate? Since we did the first shows, have you had much feedback, or have you got out and done much pulling since, or training since?
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of people reached out about the interview, especially the part 1 where I kind of told my backstory and everything, because not a lot of people were aware of that. So I got a lot of people reaching out, saying, I had no idea we have so many similarities. I had no idea what we did. Roger Cangingham reached out. He was like, dude, we're like the same person. I know I liked you for some reason. So I've been talking to a couple of different people just based off of that interview. As far as training goes, I have delved into something that I haven't been doing for the first few years of my career. I've never really trained side pressure other than lightly for rehab with bands. I've kind of left that as an ace up my sleeve. And to be honest with you, other than watching Todd and all his stuff and Westside Barbell, I really had no exposure to it. So I've been talking with Lachlan Adair for quite some time. And Lachlan actually reached out and offered to put me together an 8-week split, just focusing on a Giannis style training, which is geared predominantly 4 days a week, 2 back pressure, 2 side pressure. So he built one almost, a rehab driven one for my inner elbow. So I'm finishing up the 4th week of that. And I'm proud to say I've made gains, not 44%, but close. So no, I jest, but I mean, starting at ground zero, it's been interesting to watch the numbers climb, and kind of actually track through the programming. So yeah, big shout out to Lachlan Adair. I think he's working towards setting something up where he can work with arm wrestlers and program for them specifically. So if you're interested and you're taking a look at it, I definitely vouch for the program. It's very well written and very well balanced. So I got 4 more weeks of it, and we'll see where that takes my side pressure.
I think it's really good actually that obviously Ryan initially, Lachlan more recently, were quite public, and because of the avenues that they've got along social media, we're able to sort of put that out to people in terms of the fact that they were following a specific training program, from Todd in Ryan's case, Giannis in the case of Lachlan Adair. And Lachlan comes from a pretty serious pedigree in powerlifting. He's got like a pretty extensive knowledge on powerlifting and strength sports generally. Very powerful individual. You only need to look at him. He looks like he's been carved out of Zeus's tooth, and he's strong as FFC UK, mother fluffers. So yeah, he's a
stud. He's a stud. And I've talked to him extensively, on the phone, voice messages, things like that. And I'm not sure what his background is educationally, but the dude is on par with any exercise physiology.
Yeah, he's bright as a button, isn't he?
He knows what he's talking about. Like he can spit the jargon too. He knows it through and through. I
really like Lachlan. He's a nice guy. He's a very grounded man, isn't he?
So do I. I think he's genuine too. I don't think any of his stuff is fake. I like the way he carries himself. And he's just a naturally strong dude. And it's funny, we were talking about, I love the gym training type stuff. And he said, look, you can do what you want. He said, if you want to continue, some of your gym training stuff, just get ready to do like 3-4 hours in the gym. I was like, well, good. That's all right. I'm fine. I'll split it up into twice a day. And that's what I'm doing. He said, though, what he's gone pot committed into arm wrestling training. So he's doing a little bit of deadlift here and there, but he's largely gone away from all the traditional powerlifting. And he's focused, pot committed, through Giannis' system. So it's interesting. I mean, it's hard to tell in Australia, but I mean, the guy looks like he's pretty much untouchable over there. So, whatever he's doing is obviously working.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We were on, I do a show called The Fix with Ryan Bowen, and Rolly Royce. And, to be perfectly honest, we talked about that last week. And I said, look, because we had Jordan Davis on for the first part. We knocked out 2 shows at a time. Jordan Davis was on for the first part, and I said, who's the man at the moment in Australia? And, there's a bit of conjecture and there's a bit of this and that and the other, but we got to it where Ryan said, right now, if you sort of stop the clock, while Jordan's not quite big enough, Lachlan Adair, in my opinion, is overall number one, you know, and it certainly, he seems that way. I mean, he's rock strong. There's no doubt about it. And it's funny, he reminds me a little bit of you, mate, in that, I mean, I don't know the exact stats on this, and you probably do, from speaking to him. How long's Lachlan been pulling now? It's not that long, is it?
I think Lachlan and I have just about the exact same time.
And you've been in it how long? 3 years?
Coming on 4.
Coming up 4.
Yeah, so I think he started right around the time I did. I think I went harder early. He was still stuck in the powerlifting background, I think. And he was, more of his focus was going that way. And it wasn't until probably that midway point where he decided, hey, I think I have a future. And I mean, really, when I look at it from the grand scheme of things, I love Ryan. I love Jordan too. Jordan's awesome. I don't know with Lachlan's pedigree that if he continues on his path, I don't see anyone over there really challenging him, because I feel like his trajectory is so much more and based really just the genetic and the strength background. I mean, it looks like he's really shored his hand up. Like, I don't know where he's going to have a vulnerability.
Yeah.
On that continent.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because you look at Australia and they've got a really good program together, you know, and they've got some really solid pullers over there. And you wonder how many more can emerge, and can it become like an arm wrestling strength? You know, right. Like a real stronghold of arm wrestling talent, because you do find sometimes if you find 1 or 2 pullers in a relatively reasonable proximity, it can really spawn some top class. But Bulgaria is a great example of that. I mean, you know, they've got tiny little team that show up at Worlds and Europeans, and every member of that team's a absolute savage. Every single one of them, fire-breathing mother fluffers, all of them, you know. And that all came from, you had Svetan Gashevsky in one area, and suddenly, you know, you've got Ivanov, you've got Gulamanov coming out of there, Krasimir, all the people that are bred from that sort of school, that ethos. And suddenly, these pockets of excellence pop up all over the place, you know. And I think Turkey's another one which you can say that about. And if you look at the Swedish ladies, that will be another, which I love to do. Okay, Swedish ladies. I'm saying. But
yeah, it's funny because, you know, you're mentioning these names, and a year ago, before you started your channel, I didn't know anything about that. I mean, I knew who Engen was. I didn't know anything about Engen, really. I use your channel as my, like, this is my history channel, you know. This is my getting a little bit of a stronghold in the culture of arm wrestling. I've always been interested in, like, the backstories of everything, learning the beginnings, and you know, where any sport came from, and who the greats were that people have forgotten and things. And it's funny because today's in you know, the newer age of arm wrestling, and a lot of the people that I'm dealing with, I don't think they have any idea how unbelievable somebody like Engen Terzi is, you know. And I've had my history lesson through this channel. And it's like the beauty of everything you're doing is going back to in the past, and also the European countries and the world level. We get so caught up in the United States and our our tunnel vision of what we have here, and we take for granted what's going on all over the globe. So it's awesome. I love catching up on it. Yeah, you've been putting out so much content. I'm a little behind though. I got a playlist set up.
Everybody's in their own sort of bubble of. And this isn't a criticism, okay? Before anybody sort of jumps in the comments and just goes, you're a massive stroker, you shouldn't be like that with people. What I mean is, everybody's in their own sort of realm of understanding and perception. I mean, we were talking just before we came online, one particular guy in the comments, who's a bit of a troll and a bit of a clown and a bit of a rider, which is fair enough, each to their own, you know, you want to be a prick, be a prick. Now then, he made a comment on there, and he said, you had to ride on Paul at the end of that episode, right? Raised something about the Craig Toulier loss. Now, if you listen to the context of that, it couldn't be more dissimilar. We were obviously speaking before we came on, and you came on my radar because I was overly impressed by that performance. Because if you know Craig, as I do, as many of the guys who've been in the sport for a long period of time, you will know that Craig Toulier is as real as it gets. I mean, the guy is an absolute rock. He's there, he's been there, he's in the dye of the t-shirt. Years and years at World Arm Wrestling Federation, in the World Arm Wrestling League latterly. He's transcended weight classes. And when I saw him that day at the Arnolds, he was on paper the favourite. Mosier and him were the guys that I thought, they're going to be there or thereabouts. I wasn't aware, my ignorance, of you. Never heard of you before. Show up there, 20 minutes in, and you've been pulling, I think we said like a year at that point in time, maybe slightly more, but not much. Mm-hmm. And a year in, you frightened the living daylights out of Craig. So in my mind, that immediately put you on the who the is that guy list.
Right.
Because a guy who's not got talent and not got a bit doesn't do that to Craig Touye. He runs you over, job done, tucks you in, and you go home. He goes home, everybody's smiling. That wasn't the case. If you'd have had that fractionally more experience that day, you would have tucked him in. And Craig would be the first to acknowledge that. You know, you ran him super close. And that's what put you on the radar of the World Armwrestling League. So it's funny really how people perceive it. A lot of guys, somebody like, and I mean this again, like Vrez goes over in the States and starts cleaning up as he has been recently. Mm-hmm. And you do see a lot of comments from people over there that, wow, Vrez is amazing. And it's like it, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, it's almost like Vrez's peak of his career has gone. You know what I mean?
Right.
He'd been tearing up the Europeans and World Championships for years. You know, on multiple, he was the man on the left arm, absolute beast. And just all the things that he's showing now, it's sort of like they went unnoticed for a long period of time. You know what I mean? So it's nice to hear you say something like that, mate. And I think you're quite unique in that you're a bit of a student of the game. You've come in and you've immersed yourself in the sport at all levels. And I think people love you for it, Paul.
Right. Well, I mean, there's so much to learn. And I think if you run out of stuff to learn and you know everything, it gets hard to stay motivated too. So like I said, I love listening to shows. I love listening to Angan. I love listening to all the greats and hearing all the old stories from the past. And back to what you said about the Craig Touye match, I most certainly didn't take it that way. Like I came into that tournament, and any tournament I come into, I have full intentions of winning. But I'm also, I think I'm firmly fixed to the ground in my understanding that I'm not the favorite. If I'm not the favorite, you know what I mean? So, sure. Did I really want to pin him? Yeah. Was I screaming for the pin call when I had him close to the pin line? Yeah. But, after the match, I was glad to just be able to compete with him. You know, to me, that was an honor at that point in my career. That was probably my biggest achievement was to give him a 10, 20 second match. That was good enough for me. So yeah, I mean, I didn't take it that way. I mean, I think, and one of the things is I have yet to really, have a loss that gives me shame. So that's like a thing I try to go like,
you shame, so just try and pick it up at that, man. I'll splice them.
Right, yeah, and regarding to like, a loss to Craig Touye, that's nothing to be embarrassed of. Now, if he flashed you, caught you sleeping or something like that, that's maybe going to be a little bit harder to stomach, but I have yet to really have a loss to somebody, because I didn't show up or because, where I'm like, oh man, I hope no one sees this video. You know what I mean? I think as long as you're losing to the people who you're supposed to lose to or who are supposed to be competitive with you, there's no shame in that. And I think it's important to be able to, there's so many cliches. You either win or you learn. And that sounds so silly, but you're not, if you win a match and you review that film, 9 times out of 10, you're just watching a highlight. You know what I mean? You're not breaking it down. You won easily. You're not learning anything from that. But when
the funny thing is, Paul, you watch that video back, mate, and what you learn from that is that you're a bad mother fluffer early doors, like before your time. Because think about this. How many guys with a year of arm wrestling experience under the belt can say that they've done that to Craig Touye? How many? You're going to be able to count those on one hand.
Right.
At least in the same weight class. Holy shit, not many.
Well, when I watch it, though, I'm breaking it down from more of a different perspective of like, all right, why did you drop your body under the table so early? Why did you separate? Why did you give up on down pressure? I'm looking at all of it like, come on, man.
There's so many positives straight away. You know what I mean? It's now, like you say, you've progressed that little bit in the sport, and already you can see that was an error, and all those are corrected now.
Right.
You wouldn't have made those mistakes. But the fact that you had, and the interesting thing is, your attack will have been a bit flawed as well.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine, all you've got to do is look at that and think, yeah, but I'm not that guy. I'm not that man. Next time you meet, very, very different set of criteria.
Everything's different now. Setup's different. Attacks, angles are different now completely. So more options now.
Let's pick up on your sort of introduction to the World Armwrestling League, mate. And you faced a guy in there who's got pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Talbot, very, very solid arm wrestler. Now, there is a backstory to this, which you can tell us about. I believe you guys had met before and you had a bit of a barnstormer.
Yeah. It was Ryan Bowman and Travis Bajan's collaboration on Thanksgiving Eve in West Virginia. So, I'm not coming in to make any excuses, but I prepared the second time much, much better. Very big learning experience for me. Largely prior to that match. Now it was obviously I was training for that match. I was focused on the match. I was, preparing, watching film. But that was during football season for me. So football season, I tend to get a little bit, off the course with diet. I still train, but I can't hit doubles. So I was really, really trying to focus on specific strengths for that match. Yeah. And there was no weight cap for it. So I wasn't eating clean. And I came into that, and I knew Paul was the favorite left arm, and he waxed me. I had one match where I kind of worked him. The rest of them, he figured me out. And like I said, came into that on Thanksgiving Eve, and did not have, I want to say I did not have a professional mind state for that match. Because there wasn't really any money involved, and it was it's a Thanksgiving Eve. We're doing it for fun and publicity. And my mind state wasn't that of a professional athlete in preparation for that match, which was one of the biggest things that I learned in my career, that if I'm going into super match arm wrestling, I can't walk into it like I would walk into a tournament and, all right, I know I got, there's 15 people in this class. I know I can flash 12 of them. I'll worry about that guy at the end. I'll see what he looks like. In a super match format, I got one stud, and he's going to be a stud every time I pull him. So there's no margin for error. There's no coming in lax. There's no drinking a few beers before the thing. We wound up splitting 3-3. Travis did the old strap, and the buckle seemed to decide the match. I felt
went with the buckle. Okay.
Yeah, I felt very, very in control when I didn't have it. And Paul does such a good job of protecting from any inside move that when I had the buckle and I'm trying to hook him, he stays so far away, pulls flat-wristed, pulls with his wrist back. Very, very tricky, and I wasn't prepared for that style, and I wasn't prepared properly physically either. So, huge learning experience for me, and once again, there was no shame in that. Now, I really, really hope to win that match, and I really, really hope to be more competitive left arm, and I was kicking myself in the ass for not preparing correctly. So I put it in my mind after that, the next time I'm doing a 5 or 6 round match, I'm going to program for that. I'm going to eat clean. My diet's going to be on point, and I'm going to be ready to roll.
So you wind the clock forward to the World Armwrestling League, and for the people at home, how much of a gap was there between those two encounters, the Travis Ryan prom thing, the pound for pound, and going through to when you actually got the call for the World Armwrestling League? How much time?
Time? I don't even know. What was
6 months, 8 months, was it?
Something like that. Yeah, it was within the same. It was within that year. Yeah, it was very, very, very recent.
And in that period of time, how much better do you feel you'd got, or how much more adaptive do you feel you've got? Because I know you were very active. It seemed, when you were watching social media, you seemed to be at every friggin' event, every practice. There was footage all over of you pulling with guys like Todd Zilla, for example. It was cropping up on the internet all the time. And the thing I find quite interesting, and I wanted to sort of tune in for the newer arm wrestlers or people that are thinking about having a go at arm wrestling, is that rate of progression. If you are working hard, if you are attending events, if you are attending practices, how much better you feel you can get in a sort of 6 to 8 month period.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know what I did in between there. I can't remember. My timeline's all, my memory's not great. and my timeline's all out of whack. But, and I'm not sure where the Arnold fell in that. I think the Paul Talbot match, I can't remember, but I think the Paul Talbot match was
like May, was it?
Huh?
Like May?
I don't know.
So the Arnold would have been like March, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But
first week of March.
The Arnold, the second Arnold Classic, the one that I won, was the one where I really buckled down with everything. And I did a little vlog of like my preparation for that. And a majority of my 6-week prep time for that, I was actually traveling for work. So I was stuck in Maryland in a hotel for 4 straight weeks.
But the weight class was what, 198?
198. Yes, 198. Yeah. So just that Arnold is when I really I meal prepped everything. Everything that I ate was coming out of a plastic container. Yeah. Everything was structured. I had enough free time. I was stuck in a hotel that it was just boom, 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 boom. And the weight cut was perfect. It was on point. The second day, I mean, I think I weighed at 197.5, nailed it. Then the next day I was like 213, and the next day I was like 222. It was perfect. So I think that to me was a turning point. And applying that to that first WAL match and really going into that grind mode and just, preparing like a fighter, it made a huge difference. What's funny is, I got killed in the comments when I lost to Paul. It was a lot of Ryan's followers and stuff. I was getting killed in the comments. I had a large t-shirt on and I looked all like weird, like stomach looked weird and people were like, oh, he's all juiced up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, man, I'm just fat eating carbs. You know what I mean? So they're like, oh, he's coming into this match. He's all juiced out of his mind to pull Paul Talbot. I lose, you know what I mean? I come and pull him later, probably 25 pounds lighter, and I felt literally probably 10 to 15% stronger and better.
Yeah.
The one thing that I did battle in that, and it was funny because I talked to Jamie, the athlete liaison for WAL, and he's always like, listen, guys, tell us if you're injured. Just let us know early. And the Paul Talbot match, this was my introduction into WAL, and I had a 60% tear in my common flexor that I had been letting go. And I finally went and got an MRI. So the tear was in the middle of the common flexor bundle where it meets on the medial epicondyle, but it had 2 attachment points. So it had frayed in the middle. And at that point, they were telling me I needed to get surgery. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm not getting surgery. And I'm competing. So, what can I do in the meantime? So I was doing some rehab and everything. And I actually had to cancel my match with Lachlan Adair because I was supposed to pull Lachlan. And
really? I didn't know that.
Yes.
I was pound in Ryan's thing. Oh, okay.
And I was like, I got this WAL match. I can't risk blowing this thing off the bone.
Yeah.
So I went into that match with wrist flexion was not all there.
Yeah, you had limited range.
Well, it was very painful and it wasn't quite where it needed to be. So I got a cortisone shot, and I did the old school, just give me a shot, doc. But, when I put all that together, even with the elbow issues, I probably was 10 to 15% stronger or better than I was the first time I faced Paul, 20 pounds heavier.
Yeah.
So I think that, that, like what I learned from like prepping for the Arnold the second time and then what I, really reinforced by the WAL match is that, if I treat this sport as if it's a professional sport, I can really kind of make that next jump.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it wasn't.
For you, how much of that's mental, Paul? Because why I'm going there is because you talked in episode 1. Remember, guys, links in the description. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. You had the background where you came from. Football, you've been basketball, other sports that you've been in, and we know that you always treated them very diligently, very professional, which is what you do now and what you've done with arm wrestling. How much of that, therefore, do you think might have been that you'd studied your guy. You know what I mean? You did know more about him. You had a degree of experience with him in a super match, and you'd made that mental, oh yeah, okay, this is a nuance, which I can amend, I can adjust. Plus, your confidence may have been up because you know you're coming in there with that state of mind. I get the feeling that you're the guy when you prep, you know you're prepped.
Right.
Like, were you aware of that? Are you conscious of it?
Absolutely. I had the prior 6 rounds with him under my belt. You know what I mean? I had plenty of film to look at. And I think for me, it's more about knowing when to shut it down too. And I think that was like, it was never that I took a tournament lightly or that I didn't prepare for something. If anything, I was over preparing and preparing in general. Like, you know, I'm doing double days and I'm training my tail off for, 3 to 4 hours a day, but usually with no direction. Just like, okay, I need to get stronger. I need to get my wrist flexion stronger. I need flat finger. I need pronation. I need supination. I need dump. I'm training all these things all at once rather than saying, okay, I have an opponent where I really need my post to be strong. I really need my rise to be strong. And this is going to be my focus. So I think I train like incessantly out of like OCD, but very rarely do I shut it down and say, you know what? I'm going to take 2 weeks off of the table. I'm going to take 7 days off of the gym. That was the first time I had ever done that. Like, to be honest with you, I don't think that I've, I don't take time off the gym because like my OCD won't let me. So, and I told the commentators ahead of time, this is the first time I take 7 days off the gym. Like, and I'm not talking about for arm wrestling. I'm just talking about in general.
Period.
Like,
yeah.
I don't do it. Like, even if I go on vacation, I find it in the gym.
Yeah, it's just your thing.
Yeah. So doing that and like saying, okay, you know what? I'm not competing for 6 weeks or whatever, and learning to shut it down because prior, all I was doing was just bouncing from every practice I can hit. I'm hitting practice on Thursday. I'm pulling a tournament on Saturday. I'm hitting next practice on that following Wednesday. Never shutting it down.
That's how it looked online. I'll turn on the bloody.
Yeah.
You came on social media and said, Paul Linn again, and there's Paul Linn every practice. And I was like, well, you must have been traveling extensively at that point in time. You were sleeping in the goddamn garage.
Yeah, I was just loving it. There's a guy around here, him and his girlfriend go everywhere. They do the same thing. His name's Roger Bailey. He's on social media all the time. This guy's everywhere. I try and tell, I try and tell it like, just learn from my mistakes because this elbow, that didn't happen because of one specific pop. That was because of overuse.
So
I wore the tread all the time.
A match that you can recall. It wasn't anything.
There was one match where I felt a pop in my first year, and I never laid it down. I felt the pop against Chris Myers in a long hook match, and I never toned it down ever. That was 5 days before the WAL finals that I pulled amateur in, and I try to tell Roger, I'm like, Roger, go get as much knowledge as you can. I love to travel, but take your time because before you know it, the climb's going to be over and the novelty's going to have kind of worn off and you're going to wind up with a bunch of injuries or, soreness and can't straighten your arm. So,
it's the big thing. I remember I was speaking to Devon before when the match was posted with Brendan Lemon and Ryan. And Ryan was just in that, when Ryan went through that period of time where everything that, his existence, he'd piss stood sideways just so he could bend his own dick. Yeah. Everything had to be sideways. Now that time, I remember Devon saying, Ryan's just entering that period you just talked about where it's like, okay, we got to a level, now we're going to start hammering those joints. That is a dangerous place to exist. Yes. Because ultimately, your joint is not made to do that, and it becomes a material battle. And also the stakes are very high because if you damage something there, if you start messing with tendons, ligaments, joint, cartilage, all the things you can screw there, bits of fragments of bone busting off, you're effectively scrapped, potentially forever, and certainly for the long term. So it's a tightrope. It really is.
And that idea of side pressure training too, and I'm still like even doing Lachlan's program, I'm doing it with training wheels on. Like I'm not max exerting anything. He didn't put anything on there for max exertion for me just for that reason because I was like, look, I'm not necessarily going to be chasing gaudy numbers to put on Facebook and, and then have people question if it's real weight or half weight. I'm not going to be doing all that. I'm just trying to get the elbow healthy. And for me, the way he set the program up was good. It's nice that it's not those 1RM days. Because let's face it, like, we're not Toddzilla. We're all not Todd. He's a weirdo. Okay. His elbows are weird. My elbow fortitude is not going to be Todzilla's. And I have come to terms with that. So my style of pulling, I would love to increase my side pressure by 44%, but I don't necessarily think I need that. I think if I can gain a real 5 to 10%, and I can gain like that feeling of stability and that lack of structural pain, that's all I'm looking for. So I think early on, had I delved into side pressure like right away in my first year, I'd probably be in way worse shape than I am now. I've
got a theory on that, Paul. I actually think that let's imagine we've got on the right hand side of the screen here a sliding scale of priority in terms of your training, okay? And you feel, and this all comes down to the fundamental question, do I feel comfortable? Am I gifted in that particular plane of motion, i.e. side pressure, right? If you feel like you've got a natural predisposition to be strong in that position, comfortable, probably more important in that position, then I get it a little bit. But I do think there's a lot of guys out there that are training like hell in that motion where they're never, forget how strong you get there. Arm wrestling's not a crassy pulley machine. It's not a cable pulley of any description. So if you don't feel technically adept, if you don't feel comfortable pulling in there, what the are you doing?
Right.
Look on the other side of the screen, you may have the technical bodies around the pronation. Mm-hmm. Okay? If you've got enough hand and wrist and enough pronator, it kind of negates the requirement in 99% of your matches to ever need to do that crazy Toddzilla side pressure.
Right.
You look at Todd, he'll sacrifice his wrist, but he was never that strong in the hand and wrist anyway. It was never his A game. He would lose his hand and wrist to guys that were nowhere near as strong as he is.
Right.
And then he had that giant amount of side pressure to fall back on. But a guy like yourself, who you're pretty solid hand and wrist, you don't lose your hand and wrist every day.
No, not usually. For
me, I think there's an enormous amount of gain in pronation. Because if you sit there long enough, most people, 99.9% of people are fucking gassed. Give them 15 seconds, it's over. They're going to exponentially drop off a cliff, in terms of the level of strength they've got. So you can then transition around and use your inferior side pressure to pin their ass because they're burned.
Well, the other thing too is side pressure can be generated from, Todd will kill me if I don't say vector, but if from so many different vectors, right? You can generate side pressure without going like this. Mm-hmm. You can generate side pressure with supination dragging down. You know what I mean? That dragging down is going to feel just like side pressure.
And it's dismembering your opponent's technique at the same time, decimating it. Because all their ability to hang on to their links, their positional links, they're all collapsing like a pack of cards. You start to supinate them hard, they can't handle that. It's a destructive technique. It's horrible when somebody can supinate hard. Tom Holland?
Yep.
Tom Holland is a horrible mother fluffer to pull. Just because he supinates so intensely, like ridiculous, over-rotates, you know what I mean? Yeah. And if you're sat in there, most guys, you might be able to get into that comfortable block position, either inside, top, wherever you want. Not with him, you can't. You get sat in there, and if it's deep, it literally feels like your thumb is being twisted off your arm. It's a horrible, horrible place to be. Ill,
that supinated down pressure is one of the most uncomfortable positions where your fingers feel like they're separating away from your thumb. I know exactly what you're talking. Tom's a bad dude too. Yeah, I've been watching some of his training videos. For his size, he's moving some crazy weight in some
venom.
Structurally,
nobody's really seen Tom yet because Tom, when he was just getting to the peak of his career, suffered a really serious nerve injury to his wrist. Mm-hmm. But like you were just describing, he basically was like, I can't pass up the World Armwrestling League opportunity, so, I'm going to take an Advil and I'm in.
Yeah.
Pop the ibuprofen. What his approach was, he rested his arm, so he didn't pull any tournaments in Britain, pulled out of the UK Nationals, didn't arm wrestle in it, only went lefty, just stopped arm wrestling right-handed, but then would pop up, pull a World Arm Wrestling League, then be scrapped, win or lose, and wouldn't be able to compete for another 6 months.
Right.
And he went through basically 2.5 years of that.
Mm-hmm.
And only now we're starting to come out of that again. So I'm expecting that Tom's going to go on that rise again,
Right.
Time will tell, won't it?
Well, he's obviously training.
Oh.
He's obviously training and he's active. I really like that idea of that match between him and Jordan, especially if Jordan's coming up in weight a little bit. That's an interesting match stylistically.
It is. I think Jordan may get to a size where he's too big because Tom, Tom is like a shoelace. He's just there's no spare on the dude. So he's a guy that he can hover around that 75, 78 walk round weight, 80 kilo max. Jordan, as I understand it now, is like mid-90s.
Right.
He's
so
right
tall.
92, 93 kilo walking round. So he might get that. He might end up light heavyweight. He might end up bigger than you guys. I don't know. He's got the frame, hasn't he?
He's got the frame for sure. I wish I was that tall.
How tall are you, mate? 6'2", 6'1"?
No, I'm right at 6 foot.
6 foot.
Yeah, if you measure me with my shoes on, I'll be 6 foot. If you measure me with them off, I might not be there.
Nothing wrong with that, mate. That's it's a good height, particularly for the weight class. What about sort of forearm measurement and leverage? Have you got?
Oh, I forget. I measured the elbow to fingertip before, but I'm right there with Storm and the rest of those guys who might have a couple inches on me. My forearm's still fairly elbow to fingertips is I think a little bit above average for my height.
Now, what you've just said segues lovely into some of these questions, which I do want to get to. So, here we go. Let's have a look. Right. VXX4TYD, whoever the fluff that is. I'm not even trying to pronounce that. I hope that can't be a name. No, it's got numbers in. Right. This is his question. And he basically says, loved first part with Paul, talks a lot about your background and the similarities thing. He makes that point specifically as well. A lot of guys sort of identify him with that here, Paul. And he says, I'd like to know from Paul, everybody's talking about him as the next genuine threat for the title, and he could be the guy to turn over RVJ. Who are the guys in the World Arm Wrestling League roster that he fears most or feel like he present the biggest threat? And who would he like to pull next?
The biggest threat, I think Rob, because he's the man, right? So he's got to be the biggest threat. I think stylistically, the person I think that is potentially the worst matchup for me would be a Jordan Sill or Craig Touye. Not that I wouldn't want to pull them. I know the version of Craig that I saw pull Rob was unbelievable. So, yeah. And obviously, Storm's hand creates problems for me. I mean, we're training partners, and we're like very close friends and that makes that a little hairy as it is. But yeah, outside of Rob, who is obviously, you gotta put him as the most balanced in the middleweights for sure. His hand size, his arm strength, his bicep, his drag, everything is ranking really high in those middleweights for sure.
He's mega. He really is mega.
And I think the only guy that might have a better arm, like complete arm, like in a wrist to wrist hook, is probably Jordan. And I think for that reason, I think Jordan poses a big threat, and so does Craig with his speed and when he's on his game and he's at that 205, looking strong and fast. Those guys, and I'd love to pull Craig again. I know he's not healthy. And prayers out for him. Hopefully he heals up. I know he had some surgeries. I forget to have him redone and some just not in a good place. But that's definitely somebody. First off, Craig's one of the people I respect most in the game. Always received me with open arms. Great dude, helps out, we talk regularly. And I'm not necessarily gunning for him, but that is a match that, I would like to kind of test myself again in. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I feel like Rob is the best, all around. He's the top of the mountain, and rightfully so. And I think stylistically, a disadvantageous match for me is probably Jordan Sill. I would say Craig is I put Craig maybe a little bit above Jordan as an overall arm wrestler. But that's kind of the one that I like, the match I like. Now there's so many other guys out there that I haven't pulled. Like I would love to pull Froda. I really would. I think that would be, I mean, just after not knowing a whole lot about him and then looking at a lot of your podcasts, I started like doing my homework on him. And what an unbelievable competitor. And, I don't know how you pull the guy and not make it a war. He would be awesome to pull. I've still never gotten a chance to pull, Mike Solaris. And Justin Bishop's gonna be in my inbox if I don't mention him, because in reality though, Justin is the only guy to recently pin Rob. I would love to pull Justin. I think it would be an interesting matchup, and I think for whatever reason, there for a while, Justin got a whole lot of credit for, what he did to get the match against Rob. And then he got a lot of credit for getting that first early pin. And now it seems like that hype kind of just died off. But I think like a big Justin Bishop is right up there at the top too. I'd love to pull Justin also. I think he's a great dude. I like his charisma. I like his attitude. We see a lot of things eye to eye. So yeah, he's another one that would be fun to pull.
Because you've pulled him and you've pulled Ryan, and Ryan Bowen was saying that he's the guy that's going to. Who do you think? Like, let's here we go. Paul Lynn's take on WAL matchmaking. So if you've got a list, I'm going to name some guys for you, okay? Roster guys, and we'll leave you out of it, and we'll leave Rob out, okay? Because I think most people assume that the next logical step or next match logically for Rob will probably be you. Most people seem to be on that bandwagon, okay? So we'll leave you two guys out of it for the time being and assume that's the case. I'm going to throw some names out there, and you give me sort of who sits where and who you think's the worst, the most serious of these guys, okay? So we're going to start with this. First of all, going in headlong. Ryan Bowen, Justin Bishop. Who wins that match and why?
So match is. I've talked to Justin about that match, and I identify with his play. Okay, he beat Ryan 6-0, not too long ago. Now, has Ryan progressed since then? Absolutely. Is Ryan more of a threat now? Absolutely. But I think Justin is rightfully so a little bit salty about the idea of having to pull him again when he might have his sights set on me or Storm. So I do think it could be a really good matchup, but I also believe that Justin has gotten larger and progressed also. Now, at whatever rate it compares to Ryan, I don't know, but I don't necessarily like that matchup yet. I like that matchup if Ryan prevails from him and Brendan, because I think that match is absolutely dynamite. The hype behind it is great. The stylistic clash there is great. Like, I would love to see like the winner of that get Justin. But the only thing about that is then that may put Justin later in the season and he's not getting as many matches or whatever else. But I honestly would still give the edge to Justin, because I believe that if he were given that match, he would be probably training out of sheer spite and refusing to lose, rather than necessarily being the hunter. It would be, what I mean? His approach would be, I think, a little bit different, and I think that we would probably get the absolute best version of him, regardless of what the drive would be. And it would probably be a lot of spite.
Okay, here we go. Brendan Lemon, Froda Hoagland. Who wins that match?
Oh, that's another real good match. And Brendan's my guy. But I talk to him regularly too. He's an awesome dude. When I look at the match and then I look at like the research that I've done on Froda, if you had asked me this maybe like 8 months ago, my answer would probably be different. I think that Brendan is without a doubt the more versatile and the better arm wrestler as a whole, even though he hasn't been doing it as long. However, Froda's like sheer grit and his ability to pull without his hand and hold without his hand, I think over the course of 5 rounds is not a good matchup for Brendan. And Froda is definitely a joint-driven arm wrestler and, you know, an arm-driven arm wrestler. And I think right now, Brendan's hand is really good. His back pressure, his post is really good. But probably the weakest link might be, if Froda could actually turn him into some form of joint-driven hook or side pressure scenario. I think that match would be better a year from now. I think when Brendan gets another year under his belt, he's going to be unbelievable. I just think he hasn't even gotten like his grown man strength yet. Like he's still a puppy, you know? So you give that guy, there's other people out there just like him that haven't even come into their brute strength yet, you know?
Yep.
I just feel like Froda is not only in that, like, he's like in that prime, and he also has that, like, that grit and refuse to lose mentality that I feel like would just give him a little bit of edge in the bleed.
Right, here we go. Daniel Mosier, Storm Chelino.
All right. Daniel beat Storm out in California during the last major, I think, before the finals that in 17, I believe it was. And he beat him in the finals. Big back pressure drag, open top roll. I pulled Daniel. I wholeheartedly believe that Storm, with a little bit of a tweak in his game plan and his tools, that doesn't happen again. There's a couple holes there. You know, there's a couple things that Daniel leaves a little bit undefended. And they really fall into Storm's strong points. But the way Storm traditionally sets up, just with a little bit of tweak, I think he makes that match look easy.
Ooh,
I do.
Interesting stuff.
Storm's very hard to hit against.
Yep.
He's very hard to hit against. And Daniel, he relies very heavily on the no load and initiation. Storm has a very, very good static load that that a ref doesn't feel much. And he does so much of it through his hand. And I think that's the difference. I felt both of their hands, and Daniel's hand is very, very good. But the way he initiates, leaves him open to where Storm is most strong. And I think when they met up last time, Storm really tried to fight fire with fire. He tried to match the drag. He tried to match the low hand and fell a little bit short. I think with adjustments, I think and I'm not taking anything away from Daniel Mosier. I think he waxes a lot of people in the WAL. I just think that if we reload that match, Storm is going to prepare like a maniac because he definitely stays up at night about that match.
Yeah.
He hates hearing about it, and he wants that match. I think he would probably come in with about the same fervor as he did against Jordan. It would probably come out very similar.
Brandon Elsesser, you know.
My guy.
Nicholas Narstad, the Steel Giraffe.
That I don't think is a good matchup for Brandon. That high-low hand. Brandon's really developed a really good high cut, a really good high hook. I think he could potentially. I still think even with Nicholas, you know, posting so high through his thumb pad, I think stylistically Brandon could hang, but I think Nicholas has he's got too much skin in the game. He's been around too long, and that long forearm allows for him to match a post without even having his knuckle up. And I think it becomes very, very tricky. And Brandon wouldn't really have an option to be able to hook him. I don't see him being able to hook him. So he'd have to be able to outpost him. I do think he could steal a match or two, but I think Nicholas would be the favorite.
Brent Rackers, Danny Tesh.
Oh, I love that match. I didn't even give that match any thought ever. And I think I've thought through my head every
That's quite a nice match, isn't it?
Every
I like that match.
Block has been already evaluated. That is.
I like that match.
Brent is not. I don't think Brent can stay outside on Danny. And
not for that many rounds.
Oh man, but Brent has been looking good. You know, he's been looking good. I talked to Todd about him last time Todd and I practiced, and he said Brent's hand feels really good. Like, Brent came to practice a little bit later, so Todd was a little gassed out. He said, so for what it's worth, but he was like, yeah, he feels really, really good. So that is like a toss up, you know, and I give Danny Tesh a lot of credit. I think that there are certain guys who will probably make fairly short work of Danny just because of style. Largely guys who can initiate. Like, I think a Daniel Mosier versus Danny Tesh is a whitewash, you know?
Interesting.
I don't think that Danny's style and the way that Mosier sets up, I think he would flop his wrist almost every time, and it would be quick to the pad.
The Rustam Todzilla effect, just poof. For
But
Danny to get the power.
But Brent's a slow starter. Brent's largely I don't want to say he's a slow starter. I've seen him initiate, but I've never seen him like straight to the pad.
He doesn't just explode, does he? He sort of revs steadily into a pull. It's I like it.
I love that. I love that match. I feel like if Danny were to stop it, that he would win.
Yeah.
But I could go either way. That would be fun no matter what. It would be fun. Yeah. That's a good one.
Kevin Robertson, who I love. Love that mother. Kevin Robertson, what a guy. Love Kevin. Kevin Robertson, Joel Hudick, another rock.
I love that match. I think that's a really good entry level match for Kevin. And you know I'm a proponent of the guy. I was a proponent of him before I became friends with him. He's a good looking dude. He's well spoken. He's got history behind the camera. He did some reality television show, hunting show or something like that. But he is a long, lean, high posting hooker who can also top roll. He's got a very solid hand, a very solid wrist. I think Joel reminds me a lot of kind of like the way he'll pull without his hand is a lot like Froda. I think it could be a really good match, but I think that Kevin wins that match. I also think Kevin is in a place right now where if given a shot, he will approach the sport more professionally than he ever has before.
Yeah.
And I don't think that he has ever delved into like looking at it like, hey, I got a 6-week training camp to get ready. I think Kevin Robertson, laser-like focused with 6 weeks to get ready for one opponent, is going to be a bad dude.
He's a big puller. For that weight class, it's a big guy, isn't it? You know? He's weight distribution's brilliant. Got like no legs, you know?
He blows, every time I ask him what he weighs, it blows me away. Him and Brandon Alcester, they blow me away. I always think they're like 220 and they're like, yeah, no, I'm 194. You know what I mean? They blow me away.
But, he is stacked, isn't he? You look at Brandon at the moment, God.
He has no legs. No legs.
It's ridiculous. It's just, his upper body's just solid fluff.
Yeah.
Yeah, beast. So you're going Kevin on that one. Oof.
I am.
Comment racing. Get in there, Joel. We love you.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that's not to take anything away from Joel. And you know, Joel given time to prepare. So I really like the match. I think it would be a really interesting match. I think it would be fun to watch. I give Kevin the edge because I don't think that he has really like primed for a match. I think him primed for a match rather than just showing up to a tournament, and he is right up there with everybody. And like, you know, I've trained with him and you know, I am by no means blowing through Kevin Robertson. You know, my avenues for a pin, I have a few, but I can't choose wrong. You know what I mean? He's dangerous in certain spots. Really, really dangerous.
Weapon selection is critical importance.
He can pull the hook too. You see those big tall guys and you're like, okay, they're going to post, they're going to stay high. No, he'll drop down on his elbow. And he's out in there. He's good in there. He's as good as anybody.
Right then, so, and you know what I like about Joel Hudick? Joel Hudick's that guy you can match 1,000 times with loads of, I mean, he matches with so many guys. I like Glenn Benson and Joel Hudick. I think that's a frigging great match. Just an absolutely awesome, you know. There's a lot of options there, you know.
Right.
Now then, here we go. Blast from the past. Alan the Hitman Ford. Okay?
Yep.
In my opinion, focused individual, when he's on his game, dangerous individual. Jordan Sill.
Wow. I would love to see that match.
Because Jordan's that guy who'll sort of let you initiate a little.
Yeah.
You don't want Alan Ford to initiate on your ass.
Right. He's reactive. And, you know, I know Alan's been out of it for a while, and I think he's looking for something to, you know, spark the interest back and get back into training. So I really think that match would come down to how long and how hard and how focused was Alan. Because I do think if Alan's on his game, after all the research I've done on him and all the matches I've seen him take RBJ to the limits, you know what I mean? I think that could be really, really interesting. And if Jordan sleeps, if Jordan were to sleep on him and he was on his game, it's like you said, I mean, you know, he could be down 2-0 before a blink of an eye. So, yeah, I think that would come down to what form is Alan in. Is he in his form of old and firing on all cylinders? Did he have enough time to prepare? But I also think that Jordan Sill is also, like, when people talk about, like, it's the story of, like, two Jordans. So if he shows up, you know, or, you know, if Dr. Jekyll shows up or Mr. Hyde shows up, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, Todd speaks so highly of him, you know, as far as a training partner. He's like, Todd's like, I can never touch the guy in practice at all. But then you get to a tournament and sometimes not that same guy doesn't show up. So that could wind up being a really interesting match, or it could wind up being a one-dimensional match. But I think, it would at least put a firm standing on where Alan currently is. You know, it could plummet him right, or it could, like, you know, it could skyrocket him right to, you know, the top of the contenders, or it could maybe say, you know, hey, he's not ready yet. He needs a little bit more time. But that's an interesting match. I hadn't thought about that one either.
Jason Merlo. Quinlan Mendez.
Ooh. I think Jason wins that. I don't. Jason's very tricky to hook. His hand is incredible. When it comes to sheer cupping strength and finger strength, not overall hand, not necessarily pronation, but when you just say cupping fingers, his hand is right there with Storm's.
I got Jason as one of the most underrated guys in the
club. 100%.
I rate Jason highly. I've been trying to get Jason in the World Armwrestling League, I'm going to be honest, for quite some time, and I can't wait. I'd love to bust him in there. I love Jason Merrill. He's a top dude. He's a bad motherfucker.
Right. Yeah, I think stylistically, I mean, no, and I'm not taking anything away from Quinlan. Quinlan he's so versatile that he might be able to find a spot against Jason where he gives him problems. But I just think it's so hard to get away from Jason's hand. It's so hard. You have to be able to really supinate. You have to be able to get in the strap, get the strap tight, and really drag his arm open. And if you don't quite have enough of that supinated down pressure, he's just very, very tough to pull.
Another match for Quinlan that we've never seen that I'd love to see is him and Alan Vera.
Yeah.
I actually really like that match. Stylistically, I love that matchup. I just think that's a war. Got Barnes written all over it.
Yeah, and they're going to talk to each other during the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're like the same guy from different, you know, Alan and Quinlan have so much in common. They're both that grit and determination, just a tenacious mother fluffer, just dig in. And both of them are strong as balls. Both of them will pull from anywhere. Both of them don't have a backward step in them.
They're mirror images. They really are.
Yeah. Quinlan and Guerra. Oh. And I'm 50. I don't know who wins that.
Yeah, I love it. It would be awesome. It would be awesome.
Killer. The opportunities, all we need is for coronavirus to jog.
Right. Right.
We might even get some arm.
One more name to throw in there.
do this thing.
And I want to ask you, because I don't have a match for the guy, but
Okay.
I think he's well deserving and his weight's coming down. Who would you put CJ Twine against? Because now CJ has pulled Jason Merlot. He has pulled Brandon Elsesser. He has pulled Brendan Mulvihill. He has ran all these guys to the wire. He's beaten Justin Bishop left arm. He's on the rise. I pulled with him recently. The guy's a stud.
Yeah, I really like CJ and AJ Henson.
Ooh, they pulled before.
Really? When? I've not seen that.
I haven't either. CJ told me the other day because I think AJ has a match coming up with someone, I forget. And he said at early in his career, before I started arm wrestling, they actually pulled. I don't even know what the outcome was. He just mentioned having had pulled him. But this is way back. And I was like, where did you pull him? It was
Right
somewhere
or
down
left?
south.
Right-handed, yeah?
I believe it was right. I believe. I could be wrong, though. I'll get the details.
I do. I like that match. AJ Henson and CJ. CJ's one of those under the radar dudes, isn't he?
Big time.
You know, he
goes everywhere. He's a road
another
warrior.
guy that isn't active now that I'd like to see back in the mix, big time. Anybody knows his whereabouts in the US? I really think he should get back in the mix. Is Ryan Clark.
Oh, well, he had a match set up with Chance Shaw not too long ago. So he was coming back on the radar, and I don't know what happened. Something happened. I think Chance one of them wound up backing out.
Yeah.
Well, no, I think it was actually, they were supposed to pull, I think, at the tournament where Chance wound up beating Nick Senna. I think. So it was right around that time frame. So I know he's around, but I haven't seen him really pop up other than that match.
Chance Shaw.
He's a bad dude.
Oh, look. Chance Shaw, if he didn't have the weight, Chance Shaw, what a character. Love Chance. And Chance Shaw can arm wrestle his balls off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great arm wrestler. Love to see him in. He's tailor-made for it.
Yep.
Just at the moment, there's no weight class that he sits. You know,
he's another one like Brendan. He's just getting started. You know, and he's not driven right now the way Brendan is. And I think he needs something to light a fire under his ass. He comes up here. He's come up to my house several times. I think 3 or 4 times. For tournaments and training. He came up, prior to the Ryan Bowen match and trained with Storm, and I stayed for the weekend.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. It's just he's a middleweight. And he needs to get
all day. Yeah, all day. He just, likes the kebab much. Yeah.
Right.
That's it. It's like myself. It is, mate. Seriously. Without the side tits, I'm a middleweight. There's a middleweight screaming to get out. You should know the dude. I hate them.
You ate him.
I hate that guy. But he's saying, Chance, he just needs to to get sponsored by salad.
Yeah.
And Chance be good. He can arm wrestle all day, every day. He's mega.
Yeah, and he's not even really training like Brendan's training for arm wrestling. Like, Chance will go practice a little bit and he'll go hit the gym and everything, but he's so unrefined. And I tell him, I mean, he's not going to get mad hearing this. He's like, he's the kid with all the talent on the team who can win without trying. And because he never reaches his potential. So you can be the best in Florida. Like he's number 1 guy in Florida right now. And he's doing that largely untrained. So it's like, when are you going to try and be the best in the country? And train to do it. And I'm just hoping that comes with a little bit of maturity and everything, and it comes out of him. But I think that there are some very interesting matches. I'd love to see him pull Schoolboy.
Ooh, see, I rate Schoolboy highly.
I do too. I pulled with him.
I think I rate Schoolboy high. Now there is a guy who's just a foot.
His left is better than his right, which is where that makes that interesting. Yeah.
So I see that.
I mean, I think it depends on certain things, but stylistically, the way Schoolboy sets up and Chance's Matt Mass style low hand could be interesting. It could be interesting because I do think that Chance's right hand dominant and Schoolboy is better left. So it kind of levels that playing field.
Can Ryan Bowen beat Schoolboy, Paul?
Right-handed?
Yeah.
Yes, I think so.
Do you?
I do. If especially if they gave him catch weight.
You've got to support us.
Listen, Schoolboy is 6'5", like 255. Okay,
yeah.
He is big. Everybody, just because it's a Schoolboy, this is a large, strong human. He's big. Not a little young kid anymore. So yeah, I think that if you gave Ryan Bowen a 225 catch weight and Schoolboy had to come down, I think Ryan technically is just probably a little bit better right now. And I do think that his hand, I think Ryan's hand is very solid, which could create problems. And I think if Ryan stops the match, then he's good.
You know, Rolly Royce, Ramon's Lipins, does the fix. You know that kid? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What about him and Michael Ciliaris?
Oh, I love that.
I love that. I've got Semi on right now thinking about that match.
Yeah, do you think that would be close?
Mate, that for me is boxer versus puncher 101.
Yeah.
I think it's a 3-hour setup.
Yeah.
While Mike tries to fiddle around with his hands.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what it is. If he gets inside with Mike, then Ray's right in that match, and he can pull flat wristed as well. So that's quite entertaining. Very, very strong. And Mike, I always feel like not necessarily the strongest guy, maybe the smartest.
Right. I think IQ-wise on the table, he might be one of the best, not just in the class, but all over. He manufactures wins. I mean, he's like, he's definitely, I mean, you watch some of the things he can do.
He's ace.
Stop a match, come back and win the next one. Yeah, he's unbelievable. And what he does in the setup and the straps.
And grind. Yeah.
No, I like that match. Like I said, I think it really just comes down to if Raymond can get his shoulder committed without at least just keeping a flat wrist. If he can get full shoulder commitment, he looks good in there.
And have you ever pulled with what?
No, he looks good too. And I hear everything that Raymond said and Giannis say about him. He looks unbelievable. He looks very versatile too.
Ladies and gents, I'm conscious we are at now 55 minutes of this particular element. And for those eagle-eyed mother fluffers out there amongst you, you'll see that we also had a slight technical during this where it cut us off and we'd already done about 15 minutes there, mate. So a massively long Paul Linn, which is exactly in line with the rumours, ladies. Now then, I don't think we're done yet, Paul. I don't think we're done yet. This is, no, I don't think we're done. This might wrap up the Paul Linn series in terms of, one-on-one, but people love hearing from you. So I think we need to get you involved in some other shows. Put your comments on. Let us know if you'd like to see more from Paul Linn. Paul's a pretty accessible individual. He's got a lot of really intelligent conversation to bring forward in arm wrestling, make some great points about the sport. And I think we need to get him involved, get him on the fix, get some comments there. If nothing else, just to wind up my mate Ryan. So that'd be excellent. Ladies and gents, if this is the first time to Supernatural Strength, please like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, and we will see you next time right here on the Supernatural Strength channel. Take it easy, peeps.